Hello, this is Miss Yetter, and we are continuing our saga of Hollow City, the second novel in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. We are on Chapter 9, Part 1, and we are on page 239 in our novels. If you'll please turn with me to page 239, we shall begin. Where a coffin should have been, there was a ladder leading down into darkness. We peered into the open tomb. "There's no way I'm climbing down there," Horace said. But then a trio of bombs shook the building, raining chips of concrete on our heads. And suddenly, Horace was pushing past me, grasping for the ladder. "Excuse me, out of my way. Best dressed go first." Emma caught me by the sleeve. "I have the light, so I'll go first. Then Jacob will follow, in case there are things down there." I flashed a weak smile, my knees going wobbly at the thought. Enoch said, "You mean things other than rats and cholera and whatever sort of mad trolls live beneath crypts?" "It doesn't matter what's down there," Millard said grimly. "We'll have to face it, and that's that." "Fine," said Enoch, "but Miss Wren had better be down there too, because rat bites don't heal quickly." "Hollow ghast bites even less so," said Emma, and then she swung her foot onto the ladder. "Be careful," I said. "I'll be right above you." She saluted me with her flaming hand once more into the breach, she said, and began to climb down. Then it was my turn. "Do you ever find yourself climbing into an open grave during a bombing raid?" I said, "and just wish you'd stayed in bed?" Enoch kicked my shoe. "Quit stalling." I grabbed the lip of the tomb and put my foot on the ladder. Though briefly, of all the pleasant, boring things I might have been doing with my summer, had my life gone differently. Tennis camp, sailing lessons, stocking shelves, and then, through some Herculean effort I made myself climb. The ladder descended into a tunnel. The tunnel dead-ended to one side, and in the other direction disappeared into blackness. The air was cold and suffused with strange odor, like clothes left to rot in a flooded basement. The rough stone walls beaded and dripped with moisture of mysterious origin. As Emma and I waited for everyone to climb down, the cold crept into me, degree by degree. The others felt it too. When Bronwyn reached the bottom, she opened her trunk and handed out the peculiar sheep's wool sweaters we'd been given in the menagerie. I slipped one over my head. It fit me like a sack, the sleeves falling past my fingers and the bottom sagging halfway to my knees. But at least it was warm. Bronwyn's trunk was empty now, and she left it behind. Miss Peregrine rode inside her coat, where she'd practically made a nest for herself. Millard insisted on carrying the tails in his arms, heavy and bulky as it was, because he might need to refer to it at any moment, he said. I think it had become his security blanket, though, and he thought of it as a book of spells which only he knew how to read. We were an odd bunch. I shuffled forward to feel for hollows in the dark. This time, I got a new kind of twinge in my gut, ever so faint, as if a hollow had been here and gone, and I was sensing its residue. I didn't mention it, though. There was no reason to alarm everyone unnecessarily. We walked. The sound of our feet slapping the wet bricks echoed endlessly up and down the passage. There'd be no sneaking up on whatever was waiting for us. Ever so often, from up above, we'd hear a flap of wings or a pigeon's warble, and we'd pick up our pace a little. I got the uneasy feeling we were being led towards some nasty surprise. Embedded in the walls were stone slabs like the ones we'd seen in the crypt, but older, the writing mostly worn away. Then we passed a coffin, graveless, on the floor, then a whole stack of them leaned against a wall like discarded moving boxes. "What is this place?" Hugh whispered. "Graveyard overflow," said Enoch. "When they need to make room for new customers, they dig up the old ones and stick them down here." "What a terrible loop entrance," I said. "Imagine walking through here every time you needed in or out." "It's not so different from our Cairn tunnel," Millard said. "Unpleasant loop entrances serve a purpose. Normals tend to avoid them, so we peculiars have them all to ourselves." So rational, so wise. All I could think was, there are dead people everywhere, and they're all rotted and bony and dead and, oh God. "Uh-oh," Emma said, and she stopped suddenly, causing me to run into her and everyone else to pile up behind me. She held her flame to one side, revealing a curved door in the wall. It hung open slightly, but only darkness showed through the crack. We listened. For a long moment there was no sound but our breath and the distant drip of water. Then we heard a noise, but not the kind we were expecting. Not a wing flap or the scratch of a bird's feet, but something human. Very softly someone was crying. "Hello?" called Emma. "Who's in there?" "Please don't hurt me," came an echoing voice. Or was it a pair of voices? Emma brightened her flame. Bronwyn crept forward and nudged the door with her foot. It swung open to expose a small chamber filled with bones. Femurs, shin bones, skulls, the dismembered fossils of many hundreds of people, heaped up in no apparent order. I stumbled backward, dizzy with shock. "Hello?" Emma said. "Who said that? Show yourself." At first I couldn't see anything in there but bones. But then I heard a sniffle and followed the sound to the top of the pile, where two pairs of eyes blinking at us from the murky shadows of the rear of the chamber. "There's no one here," said a small voice. "Go away," came a second voice. "We're dead." "No, you're not," said Enoch, and I would know. "Come out of there," Emma said gently. "We're not going to hurt you." But voices said at once, "Promise?" "We promise," said Emma. The bones began to shift. A skull dislodged from the pile and cluttered to the floor, where it rolled to a stop at my feet and stared at me. "Hello, future," I thought. Then two young boys crawled into the light on hands and knees atop the bone pile. Their skin was deathly pale, and they peeped at us with black circled eyes that wheeled dizzyingly in their sockets. "I'm Emma. This is Jacob, and these are our friends," Emma said. "We're peculiar, and we're not going to hurt you." The boys crouched like frightened animals, saying nothing, eyes spinning, seeming to look everywhere and nowhere. "What's wrong with you?" Olive whispered. Bronwyn hushed her. "Don't be rude." "Can you tell me your names?" Emma said, her voice coaxing and gentle. I am Joel and Peter," the large boy said. "Which are you?" Emma said, "Joel or Peter?" "I am Peter and Joel," said the smaller boy. "We don't have time for games," said Enoch. "Are there any birds in there with you? Have you seen any flying past?" "The pigeons like to hide," said the larger. "In the attic," said the smaller. "What attic?" said Emma. "Where?" "In our house," they said together, and raised their arms. They pointed down the dark passage. They seemed to speak cooperatively, and if a sentence was more than a few words long, one would start and the other finish, with no detectable pause between. I also noticed that whenever one was speaking, the other wasn't. The quiet one would mouth the other's words in perfect synchronicity, as if they shared one mind. Could you please show us the way to your home? To your house? Asked Emma. Take us to your attic? Joel and Peter shook their heads and shrank back into the dark. What's the matter? Bronwyn said. Why don't you want to go? Death and blood, cried one boy. Blood and screaming, cried the other. Screaming and blood and shadows that bite, they cried together. Cheerio, said Horace, turning on his heels. I'll see you all back in the crypt. Hope I don't get squashed by a bomb. Emma caught Horace by his sleeve. Oh, no, you don't. You're the only one of us who's managed to catch any of those blasted pigeons. Didn't you hear them? Horace said. That loop is full of shadows that bite, which could only mean one thing, hollows. It was full of them, I said, but that might have been days ago. When was the last time you were inside your house? Emma asked the boys. Their loop had been raided, they explained in their strange and broken way, but they'd managed to escape into the catacombs and hide among the bones. How long ago that was, they couldn't say. 2 days, 3, they lost all track of time down here in the dark. Oh, you poor dear, said Bronwyn. What terrors you must have endured. You can't stay here forever, said Emma. You'll age forward if you don't reach another loop soon. We can help you, but first we have to catch a pigeon. The boys gazed into one another's spinning eyes and seemed to speak without uttering a word. They said in unison, "Follow us." They slid down from their bone pile and started down the passage. We followed. I couldn't take my eyes off them. They were fascinatingly odd. They kept their arms linked at all times, and every few steps they made loud clicking sounds with their tongues. What are they doing? I whispered. I believe that's how they see, said Millard. It's the same way bats see in the dark. The sounds they make reflect off things and then back to them, which forms a picture in their minds. We are echolocators, Joel and Peter said. They were also apparently very sharp of hearing. The passage forked, then forked again. At one point, I felt a sudden pressure in my ears and had to wiggle them to release it. That's when I knew we'd left 1940 and entered a loop. Finally, we came to a dead-end wall with vertical steps cut into it. Joel and Peter stood at the base of the wall and pointed to a pinpoint of daylight overhead. Our house, said the elder. Is up there, said the younger. And with that, they retreated into the shadows. The steps were slimed with moss and difficult to climb, and I had to go slowly or risk falling. They ascended the wall to meet a circular person-sized door in the ceiling, through which shone a single gleam of light. I wedged my fingers into the crack and pushed sideways, and the doors slid open like a camera shutter, revealing a tubular conduit of bricks that rose 20 or 30 feet to a circle of sky. I was at the false bottom of a fake well. I pulled myself into the well and climbed. Halfway up, I had to stop and rest, pushing my back against the opposite side of the shaft. When the burn in my biceps subsided, I climbed the rest of the way, scrambling over the lip of the well to land in some grass. I was in the courtyard of a shabby-looking house. The sky was an infected shade of yellow, but there was no smoke in it and no sounds of engines. We were in some older time, before the war, before cars even. There was a chill in the air, and errant flakes of snow drifted down and melted on the ground. Emma came up the wall next. Then Horace. Emma had decided that only 3 of us should explore the house. We didn't know what we would find up there, and if we needed to leave in a hurry, it was better to have a small group that could move fast. None who stayed below argued. Joel and Peter's warning of blood and shadows had scared them. Only Horace was unhappy and kept muttering to himself that he wished he'd never caught that pigeon in the square. Bronwyn waved to us from below and then pulled closed the circular door at the bottom of the well. The top side was painted to look like the surface of water. Dark, dirty water you'd never want to drop a drinking bucket into. Very clever. The 3 of us huddled together and looked around. The courtyard and the house were suffering from serious neglect. The grass around the well was tamped down, but everywhere else it grew up in weedy thickets that reached higher than some of the ground floor windows. A doghouse sat rotting and half collapsed in one corner, and near it a toppled laundry line that gradually being swallowed by brush. We stood and waited, listened for pigeons. From beyond the house's wall, I could hear the tap of horses' hooves on pavement. No, this definitely wasn't London circa 1940. Then, in one of the upper floor windows, I saw a curtain shift. Up there, I hissed, pointing at it. I didn't know if a bird or a pigeon had done it, but it was worth checking out. I started toward a door that led into the house, beckoning the others after me, then tripped over something. It was a body lying on the ground, covered head to ankle with black tarp. A pair of worn shoes poked from one end, pointing to the sky. Tucked into one cracked sole was a white card on which had been written in neat script, Mr. A.F. Crumbly, lately of the outer provinces, aged forward rather than being taken alive. Kindly request his remains be deposited in the tombs. Unlucky bastard, Horace whispered. He came here from the country, probably after his own loop was raided, only to have the one he'd escaped to raided as well. But why would they leave poor Mr. Crumbly out in the open this way, whispered Emma. Because they had to leave in a hurry, I said. Emma bent down and reached for the edge of Mr. Crumbly's tarp. I didn't want to look, but couldn't help myself, and I half turned away, but peeked back through slit fingers. I had expected a withered corpse, but Mr. Crumbly looked perfectly intact and surprisingly young, perhaps only 40 or 50 years old, his black eyes graying just around the temples. His eyes were closed and peaceful, as if he might have just been sleeping. Could he really have aged forward like the leathery apple I took from Miss Peregrine's loop? Hello, are you dead or asleep? Emma said. She nudged the man's ear with her boot, and the side of his head caved and crumbled to dust. Emma gasped and let the tarp fall back. Crumbly had become a desecrated cast of himself, so fragile that a strong wind could blow him apart. We left poor crumbling Mr. Crumbly behind and went to the door. I grasped the knob and turned it. The door opened and we stepped through it into a laundry room. There were fresh-looking clothes in a hamper. A washboard hung neatly above a sink. This place had not been abandoned long. The feeling was stronger here, but was still only residue. We opened another door and came into a sitting room. My chest tightened. Here was clear evidence of a fight. Furniture scattered and overturned, pictures knocked off the mantel, strips of wallpaper shredded to ribbons. Then Horace muttered, "Oh no," and I followed his gaze upward to a dark stain discoloring a roughly circular patch of ceiling. Something awful had happened upstairs. Emma squeezed her eyes closed. "Just listen," she said. "Listen for the birds and don't think about anything else." We closed our eyes and listened. A minute passed, then finally the fluttering coo of a pigeon. I opened my eyes to see where it had come from. The staircase. We mounted the stairs gently, trying not to creak them under our feet. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, in my temple. I could handle old, brittle corpse. I wasn't sure if I could take a murder scene. The second floor hallway was littered with debris. A door torn from its hinges lay splintered. Through the broken doorway was a fallen tower of trunks and dressers, a failed blockade. In the next room, the white carpet was soaked with blood, the stain that had leaked through the floor to the ceiling below. But whomever it had leaked from was long gone. The last door in the hall showed no signs of forced entry. I pushed it open wearily, my eyes scanning the room. There was a wardrobe, a dresser topped with careful arranged figures, lace curtains fluttering in a window. The carpet was clean, everything undisturbed. Then my eyes went to the bed and what was in it, and I stumbled back against the door jamb. Nestled under clean white covers was two men, seemingly asleep, and between them two skeletons, aged forward, said Horace, his hands trembling at his throat, two of them considerably more than the others. The men who looked asleep were as dead as Mr. Crumbly downstairs, Horace said, and if we touched them, they would disintegrate in just the same way. They gave up, Emma whispered. They got tired of running and they gave up. She looked at them with a mix of pity and disgust. She thought they were weak and cowardly, that they'd taken the easy way out. I couldn't help wondering, though, if these peculiars simply knew more than we did about what the whites did with their captives. Maybe we would choose death, too, if we knew.